Hey there, special educators. Welcome to Autism Academy 360, a podcast to making your job as special education teachers easier. I'm Lisa.
And I'm Abby, a behavior specialist. And together, we have over 25 years of special education experience.
And I'm a veteran autism teacher. We both are passionate about empowering you with practical teaching strategies and actionable tips and tricks that will help you thrive in your role.
Whether you're a seasoned educator looking for fresh insights, a newbie navigating your first classroom, or a parent of a neurodivergent child, this podcast is your go-to resource for all things autism.
So let's get started with today's episode.
Hey, it's Abby. We are going to dive into all things FBAs and BIPs today. Now, I know that this can be difficult to understand a little bit, and I know for me, we talked about the legality in college, but we never really got into the nitty-gritty. And I can remember back to my very first year teaching, which I'm a little embarrassed to admit, I remember my school psych sitting us down to go over just the details, and I remember thinking, I don't even know what comes first, an FBA or a BIP. So we're going to talk about all that. We're going to give you a lot of the foundational knowledge that you need and just the information you're going to need to be successful in conducting these and using them with behaviors in your classroom. So first off, I threw out a lot of acronyms already. So we talked about FBAs and BIPs. So FBAs stand for Functional Behavior Assessments. So this is going to come first. This is the assessment figuring out why these problem behaviors are occurring. Then I also mentioned the BIP, which is a behavior intervention plan. So this is a legal document that comes after the FBA, and it's based on the findings from the FBA. So you can't have a BIP without an FBA. They go hand in hand. But you can have an FBA and not a BIP. And we're going to talk more about that. So an FBA or functional behavior assessment is part of the IEP process. So you do need consent to be able to conduct this assessment. As always with these things, I want to be sure that you are going back to your state requirements and making sure that you follow all of the directions from your specific state as well. So we're going to talk a little bit more general, but I also need to disclose that. So when are you going to do an FBA? So an FBA has to be considered when there are behaviors that are impeding the learning of a child or significantly impacting the learning of those around them. And there's already been some strategies put into place at the tier 1 level, tier 2 possibly, and these behaviors are pretty serious and still occurring. Especially if the behaviors are causing harm or injury to themselves or others, that is a great time for the FBA. If you have a child that you are seeking for a different placement, so maybe a more restrictive setting, that would be a good time. Some places require that before you're even able to get to that level. And also, this is again going to vary district to district, state to state, but some places you also need an FBA done before you can move forward with a one-to-one teaching assistant. So this is all important. And then the last time you might need it is if you have a student presenting some behaviors and they have been suspended and they might be having some disciplinary actions, but you have a manifestation meeting and you connect behavior to the disability, then if they don't have an FBA done, you might need to do one. So there are lots of reasons why you might need to do one. So an FBA should be done from a team approach. So as a behavior specialist, a lot of times I'm asked to come in and support an FBA. Since I work in many schools, I can't be the sole person doing it because I'm not with a kid all day. I don't know them. I'm not there for all the behaviors. So it really needs to be a team approach, which means the child's teacher, any support staff, the school psychologist, counselor, principal, whoever is involved with this child really should have a hand in just gathering information about this. There should be data collection, so there should be a gathering of some baseline behavior data. I love collecting ABC data, and that's something that I use when I am first conducting an FBA. Now, I have a freebie for you that I'll leave in the show notes that is a Google Sheet, and it makes it so easy to collect this data. Then you can really be looking at what's happening before the behavior and what's happening immediately afterwards. So what happens is I will be gathering this data. I'll be reading through their social history, their behavioral history, their academic history, just getting a really big picture to identify triggers, identify the function of the behavior, why the behavior is happening. Now, if you remember, behavior happens for 4 different reasons: attention seeking, escape, sensory, or access to a tangible. So we are trying to figure out why the behavior is happening so we can do a needs-based intervention plan based off of that. So it is so important, I can't stress this enough, to have collaboration when you are doing an FBA. A lot of times it is done in behind closed doors and the classroom teacher isn't involved. And I'm not sure how that could be a real accurate representation, just because there are so many things that the classroom teacher has to add to it. Whether it is the special ed teacher, the gen ed teacher, they should both be involved. And you can do informal, just talking, question and answer with the teacher, just to get a lot of information about the student. Now, I mentioned briefly that you can have an FBA done and not require a BIP. So if you complete the functional behavior analysis and realize this behavior is being managed at the tier 1 level, maybe there needed to be it done for some certain reason, but you can determine that the child doesn't need a formal behavior intervention plan. But many times you do require one. So the BIP is what I'm going to refer to it as, the behavior intervention plan, is following the FBA, and it is part of the IEP. So this is going to target 1 or 2 problem behaviors. Now, that is the main thing, having a target of some problem behaviors and some replacement goal behaviors as well. So in the BIP, you're going to define these problem behaviors really explicitly, so anyone reading the BIP can understand what they're going to look like, sound like. So you don't want to just say tantruming or non-compliance. What does that actually look like? Non-compliance can look from just sitting there in your chair, not doing work, to ripping up paper, throwing the tables. That could also be non-compliance. So you really need to be specific with it. In the behavior intervention plan, it should be mainly focused on the proactive intervention strategies. This is huge because we want to be proactive in our approach instead of reactive. However, you still should have a plan for when these behaviors occur. And it should be a pretty in-depth, because you should have part of the plan when the child is just getting a little agitated. How could you intervene? As opposed to when they get to that outburst stage, when they are flipping over tables, you are going to intervene very differently. So say the student starts off with just sitting there and maybe refusing to do work. How are you going to intervene? Are you going to come over? Are you going to validate how they're feeling? Are you going to offer them a break? Are you going to offer them some hurdle help? What are you going to do? That's going to look different than when they are flipping a table. Are you going to have to remove the class? Are you going to limit your language? That is going to be extremely different, and you need to have both pieces in the plan. Now, you also need to make sure that you put in there how you are progress monitoring this and how often. I, again, like to use that ABC data sheet because it just helps keep all the parts of the behavior in one place, all the data. So you can even sort through it and find, is the intensity going down even if the frequency is staying the same? That is just some good data to have. You can constantly be updating these BIPs, and they should be a working document. And whenever there is someone involved, someone new, everyone should know the behavior intervention plan. Now, you also need to add in a section for replacement behaviors. You can have a target goal, you can have a target behavior, but you need to have a replacement behavior that matches what was determined in the functional behavior assessment so that it's going to work. So say, for example, you have a student who is constantly leaving the classroom, and the functional behavior assessment determines that the reason they're doing that is they get a whole bunch of adult attention because safety, right? So our target behavior would be that elopement, and our goal behavior would be to have them to stay in class. But we need to teach them a replacement behavior to still get that attention, because that's great. Yes, of course we want to keep them in the classroom, but they are so motivated to get that attention, and they know it's 100% going to happen if they leave the classroom. So we need a plan to teach them an appropriate way to get their needs met. So FBAs and BIPs, sometimes they can be scary, but they don't have to be. Just think of it as the FBA is figuring out why everything is happening. That comes first. And then the BIP is the plan so everyone is on the same page. It's just so important to have a collaboration with parents, with all staff. Even special area teachers should know about the plan because they're going to their classroom as well. Making sure that there's consistency across the different settings is going to be huge. Just a reminder that you can get that ABC data sheet, which is going to make collecting data so much easier for you and is totally free. I'll leave that in the show notes. As always, if you have any questions about this, if you're dealing with doing an FBA or developing a BIP and you are stuck, please reach out to me. You can find me on social media, Mrs. Mo's Modifications, or you can always shoot me an email, abby@mrsmosmodifications.com, and I would be more than happy to chat. Good luck with your next behavior plan, and I hope this helped.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Autism Academy 360. We hope that you've gained some tips and motivation to fuel your week ahead. Before you go, don't forget to hit that follow button on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. If you want to show support, head to Apple Podcasts and leave your rating and review. Until next time, stay inspired, stay informed, and most importantly, stay connected. We'll catch you in the next episode.